Who am I kidding? It's usually a combination of a few things every morning. I was like, as I said, I was like, bah. um, there's two things that I want to share for sure. So, uh, one is called Prosperity and Obedience, and it's from the works Putting the Prosperity Idea to Work by Robert A. Russell. So it's a great book. So it takes the concepts and ideas of the universal laws and kind of gives you like, here's like the what for. Like, so it's kind of like the how-to book. So it's like, here's the concept and the theory, and then the how-to. And what I'm noticing when I was reading it this morning, that it talks about opening the channels of prosperity so that like attracts like. And once again was reminded by divine self. It's not necessarily about attracting, but the combination of emitting at like as in a frequency. And so today I saw it as like an actual current, right? Like that runs through like an electrical current. And so it just gives me more of a little bit of a visual. And so I thought that would be kind of, so I want to share that with you. And I'll read a little bit of it. But what I also want to share with you is uh, a bit of a personal experience I had yesterday. And I'll keep it short and sweet. And for those of my empathic friends, I'm okay. And so I say it that way because I had an experience yesterday where I went to my hairdresser last night. So I live in Red Deer. My hairdresser's in Camrose, which is an hour and a half away. I've been seeing this gentleman forever. So we hang out at night. So I go at night. So and so he talks to me from a business perspective, and he lost his mom and his sister during COVID, and is single. And so COVID was especially hard on him. And yesterday he had a psychotic breakdown. And so while I was in the chair. And so interesting for me because I was, for the first time ever in my whole entire life, I was afraid for my life. And because of what was going on with him. And I'm sharing this with you, not like I'm good. I'm shaken. I have a bit of trauma that I'll be working through today. And the gift that I was immediately was given last night was the knowing, meaning I didn't try to talk myself out of or down from the experience of being afraid for my life. That I didn't, because I would have before. Oh, Ranchelle, you're just overreacting. It's really not that bad, right? And I was very clear that I was in trouble. And so the I'm working with a mentor right now. I have many mentors in my life, and we're doing, it's called the Inner Knowing Challenge. And so, through the tears of phoning the police last night and phoning Rob and laughing, and I'll probably cry and laugh with you today, was this knowing that I knew, and this trust in myself at such a deep level, and giving myself permission to cry and give myself permission to be afraid, and give myself permission that it was okay that I phoned the police, right? That I wasn't this overreactive person, right? And then the humor that came up because he my hair is like this today because he's half done, and he like totally fucked it up. Like, so he cut it in a way that he doesn't like. I have a I have another appointment this afternoon with a friend of mine in here, and the humor that because as I was like, phoning the police and phoning Rob, and I was crying with Rob, and I said, and my hair is wrecked. And so, and then laughing because of all the things that I was like hyper focused on, was that my hair has always been my flow. My flow has always been my thing since I've been like 15, right? People, right? And so being in awareness of how beautiful our minds work, because my mind was wanting to make light of a very, very scary situation. And so as I was releasing, because I was shaking, as I was releasing the trauma from the night, and being like hyper concerned about my hair, I could laugh. I could laugh in spite of everything that was going on. And again, this deep awareness, this deep gratitude for the knowing, and for paying attention to my knowing, for paying attention to my guts. Because how many times have all of us been in some sort of experience where we downplay our intuition or downplay how we feel, or we try to justify um, being in a situation in comparison? So simple things like, I was in a coaching program a couple of years ago. It was a huge investment, right? It was like over 24,000 US dollars a year. And I was in it for 2 weeks and thought, "Ooh, I think I made a mistake." And and thought, well, and talked myself out of having a conversation with the person, saying, I think I've made a mistake. I don't think I'm in the right place. And not listening to my inner voice. So I think the gift that I was given last night was just this deep awareness, and to share with all of you that you know, you know, and to not downplay your knowing, even if it doesn't make any sense to anyone else. um, you know, and it only needs to make sense to you. It only needs to resonate with you. It doesn't need to make sense to anybody else, right? You don't need to be talked into anything or talked out of anything. And how often do we do that? Do we allow someone maybe that we think is more educated than we are, or more knowing than we are, or right? And for me, it was just this beautiful opportunity to have an experience for myself. But I also know every experience that I have, I'm meant to share with people. And so then this beautiful gift of um, knowing that I was to share it with all of you this morning as well, to remind all of you how powerful you are, and and so I will, if you are one to send out love and light and energy and healing, I will take it today, right? I feel a little raw, right? My feelings are a little raw today. I have a little bit of trauma stored in my body, so I'll do some trauma work this morning. And but wanted you to know, to listen, because right? And even if it's someone that we trust that tries to tell us that we don't know, and I didn't have that yesterday, right? But just follow your guts, right? Follow your intuition. It will never lead you astray, truly, right? And it's interesting because when we follow our intuition, we sometimes might find ourselves in resistance, right? We've talked lots about this last couple of weeks, right? Are we in resistance, or are we in non-resonance? And resistance will feel different. Resistance feels like stuck. I was trying to think of how can I describe resistance. Resistance for me feels like I'm stuck. I know I'm in resistance when I feel stuck. And when it feels non-resonance, I would say I use the word, it feels off, right? It just feels off. Whereas resistance feels stuck. And so this morning, as I was meditating and guided to this particular book, Putting the Prosperity Idea to Work, by Robert A. Russell. Right now, he has another book called You Too Can Be Prosperous, which is a great book. I think he also has one on faith, which I'm just looking to see if I have it, which I read lots. And then this one, Putting the Prosperity Idea to Work. And so I struggle with the word obedience. Like, it's a really interesting word for me. I move into resistance. There's no like non-resonance. And so now Robert Russell, I don't know if he was a reverend, but his works are based in faith. And so he does biblical quotes and talks most uses the word God. So again, take what you like and leave the rest. If you want to substitute the word God, absolutely positively do what works for you. But it starts out with a quote from the Bible, which is, if ye be willing and obedient, ye shall eat the good of the land. And for me, it was really interesting because, as I said, I struggle with the word obedience, and I still struggle with the word obedience. And so, but I love this explanation. He says, when electricity fails, the problem is not in the current, but in the appliances through which it passes. When mathematics fails, the problem is not in the principle, but in our understanding of it. And when prayer fails, the problem is not in the law, but on our relationship to the law, right? The law of prosperity is a law of consciousness. It is a divine connection in mind, which must be kept free and open through the observance of the law. If consciousness is the cause of everything that comes into our lives, so we are the cause of everything, right? So our circumstances, our environment, our results are all an effect. The cause is consciousness. The cause is our thinking, right? And so if consciousness is the cause of everything that comes into our lives, we must keep our thinking, feeling, and acting in line with wealth and not with poverty. St. James said, every good and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. He said, note the words no variableness and compare the thought with St. Paul's, Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. Now, if we look, when I was growing up, I looked at God, higher power, even Christ consciousness as something outside of me. But if you spend time studying the different parts of the Bible with different people, right? So getting a different look. There is this, we've talked about this in the past, but there is this theory that it is not outside of us. So Christ consciousness is not outside of us. God consciousness, God power, higher mind, God mind is not outside of us, but part of us, a fractal energy, right? We carry a piece, let's say, of this fractal energy of divine within us. So it's not so as a child, God sitting on a big chair in heaven in the sky, like this, like Abraham Lincoln's, I've never seen Abraham Lincoln's statue other than on TV, but that's kind of what reminded me of, right? And then this, you get this and you're bad, this is what happens and you're punished and this. And so I always felt like it was something outside of myself. And so obedience for me was I had to obey a person. And that's where things got really messy for me because I don't obey people well. Like, there is a part of me that resists obeying people. And, probably spend hours analyzing that one. Or I could just go into the acceptance of that's a challenge for me, right? And so if I personify my higher power as something outside of myself, and I'm to obey my higher power, I will have resistance, right? As I've evolved in my spirituality and think of the divine within me as a fractal energy, I am part of divine, then although it is, it's easier for me to, and what I'm sharing with you is the possibility of moving into the obedience of the divine within you, following your true source, right? Your divine intelligence. So we can use intuition, as my experience, sharing, following your intuition, following divine intelligence, following your God mind, your higher power, right? But again, following, when you use that word, what picture do you have, right? Do you have like following as in there's a leader and you're behind the leader and you're blindly following? Are you beside when you're talking about following? So this is why I think the energy of words are so important, and why you might need to find different words, right? Until you can wrap your head around what that particular thing means for you. So he says the price we pay for prosperity is living and thinking in strict obedience. Like when I read that the first 5 times, I was like, well, I'm screwed then, because I don't do strict obedience and I don't conform well. Because the next word is, and conformity to the law. In order to receive from God, we must be receptive to his good. And so I share this with you because when we're reading something that we're in resistance to, or are we in non-resonance to, it's an opportunity not to like take the book and toss it, but to ask, why am I in resistance? Why do I resist the words, right, in strict obedience and conformity? What about those words feels restrictive? So these are questions I ask. What about these words feels restrictive? And to me, conformity is like towing the line. Conform to this because there's only one way. And I resist the only one way because I'm a creative being. And I can look at a solution and a problem, and I can think there's a million ways to solve that particular solution, right? Yeah, Kim says those words reek of patriarchy, right? Women wouldn't write that kind of shit, right? So, and so, but what I could take from it, so this is the principles, our slogan behind in the 12-step program: take what you like and leave the rest, right? So, but I thought, okay, I'm strictly adhering to the law of gravity, right? I'm not like, there's a law of gravity, it's happening, and I'm adhering to it. I'm not floating right in the air right now. So I'm denser, right? My body is denser than air. So I'm following the law. If I go to fly in the plane, I'm still following the law, right? I've figured out how to work the law in my life so that I can get, not get in the terms of lack, but right in terms of a descriptive word, what I desire. So if we go into the obedience of the law versus I'm not obeying a man or a woman or a structure or an institution, but I look at, let's say, the universal law of polarity, and I obey the law of polarity, which is, if I'm experiencing the lack of something, everything in nature is created as a whole. Therefore, what I desire is also there. And I need to move myself into, so here's another law, the subsidiary law of centeredness, which is I move myself into the center and I pause and go, if I agree that everything is created as a whole, the ways and means to build my business, to do my sales, to do the marketing, to do the operations, to have love, to be at peace, to have ease and flow, like all of those things, to be prosperous, to have prosperity, are there. I just might be experiencing the polarity of the law, which is, in this particular case, would be a lack, right? And so if we can work with our personalities, right? Ranchal, I don't do well with obedience, right? In fact, my first wedding that was in there, right? To Love and Obey. And everyone laughed when I said, I recited the vows, and all my family laughed when I said to love and obey. And then the minister was like, we're laughing. And I said, yeah, I don't obey much. So like so in church, right, that was like, yeah, I don't obey much. Right. So, and right. And so my people, like, right, my family knows that I've me, right? And so, but and what would happen if I obeyed the law, right? If I conformed to the law, what word would I need to change? What definition do I need to change to conform, right? And so, um, and so that's the question that I'll be contemplating over the next couple of days. Like, right, conformity is, because I haven't looked up the definition yet. I didn't get a chance to before we came on the call today. But conformity to me is someone like, all right, I'm under the thumb of somebody. Is that what it really means? Or and I obeyed like the mathematical laws, 2 + 2 is 4. Right? I accept that, right? What other laws or things am I obeying, right? So it's just this opportunity for a dive into our beliefs, a dive into the truths, our truths, which might be different than other truths. Because I always say, like, there's perception, and then there's like truth, meaning the capital T truth, like as in the divine truth. And then there's, I used to say the limiting beliefs, but from yesterday's call, changing it to the false beliefs, right? What does that look like, right? And the insight that you can receive, right? So it's like taking books that were very patriarchal in nature and go, how would I word this now? What, because things do change, right? Like values change, things change. So what would that look like for me, right? So I resist words like have to, must, should, right? Those words don't resonate with me, right? Those words don't resonate with me. Oh, good. Karen, I was hoping you were looking up the word. And so I resist, musts and shoulds, right? So even when I read, I will like reword it. So here's what it's written. We must cultivate receptivity by eliminating all the negative thoughts. And so I automatically in my head now say things like, we have the opportunity, right? I have the opportunity to cultivate receptivity by eliminating all the negative thoughts, feelings, and practices that close my channels of supply. Because it's a choice. And I think what more than anything, the how I believe I came to a space and place of feeling really empowered was I released the words of have to, must, right? I sometimes still say should because I actually can't find another word, right? And release could, and realize that everything is a decision and everything is a choice, right? Not that I have to do anything. I'm choosing to. And it might even be like, oh, look at me. I chose to totally lose my shit the other day. Or, oh, look at me, right? I made the decision to be offended, right? Like all of those things. Because it's really, then you move yourself, I believe, it's an opportunity to move ourselves from a victim state or martyr state into a state of victory or victorious. So Karen posted the definitions. Thanks, Karen. So the etymology of conformity is from conform to fashion, to form, to shape, to educate, right? To modify, meaning action in accordance with some standard, right? Conform, action in accordance with some standard. Adherence to the Church of England. There we go. There's the resistance. Right? And Sherry wrote, conformity, the process whereby people change their beliefs, attitudes, actions, or perceptions to more closely match those held by groups to which they belong or want to belong, or by groups whose approval they desire. So for me, I still feel really limited in that word. Like that to me does not feel like a sexy, like, oh yeah, I totally want to conform. So I'm in resistance to it for sure. But here's how I process. Once I understand, oh, I'm in resistance to it because yeah, I don't really want to conform because I no longer resonate with seeking approval by groups. So I'm only fixating on one of those pieces, but yeah, I don't want to be in a space and place where I'm seeking desire from groups or changing where my beliefs and attitudes to match others. Right. So, and so then I go back into, oh yeah, my purpose actually isn't to conform. Right. And so for you, when you hear things or read things, it's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but look at, can you take any of this and go, how can I apply this? Or do I want to apply this? And then what happens is we learn to embody different works at different levels, at deeper levels, because we're such multi-layered beings, right? And Karen add likeness correspondence with the model in form or manner, right? Yeah. Conformity equals compliance, and compliance doesn't work for Karen, right? Yeah, I don't want to comply. And that could be for me, and again, I'm just sharing my own personal story with all of you, is all of the ways that I complied as a child, right, that didn't resonate with me, all the secrets that we were asked to keep in our home, right? All of the questioning, right? Like, for example, even last night, before I walked out of the hair salon, I asked Van, is my friend's name. I asked him if there was any way that I could support him. And he said no. And I said to him, I'd really like to take you to the hospital. And he said, I'm not going back there. And I said to him, I'm afraid that you're going to hurt yourself tonight. And he said, no, I'll just get the voices to stop. They're not supposed to. We had an agreement that they wouldn't come follow me to work. Right? But I was really, yes, I was afraid for my own life, but I was also afraid of his. And the 20-year-old Ranchelle would have not left as early, right? And may not have phoned the police because even thinking that there might have been self-harm, but I would have talked myself out of phoning the police, right? From past beliefs from my family, right? Don't get involved. People aren't going to believe you. How can you prove it? You're overreacting, right? You have no proof of this, right? And all the things that about my knowingness, about my intuition, about who I just be. So I guess the major messages today are, right? Follow your intuition. We started with that your knowingness, and in situations when you're on a spiritual development path, you're going to run into people, places, things that you're either going to not resonate with or not be in resistance to, And there's a lot of gold in both, right? There's a lot of gold into, like, I don't resonate with the word compliance, right? I also resist the word. But if I, in my earlier definition, I said, for me, resistance is I feel stuck, resonance or non-resonance. So if I take that definition and I go, why am I resisting this? Right? Because it felt like resistance at first, right? so as we started to explore the definitions together, it's like, oh yeah, that's not resistance. I mean, that's a non-resonance, but I do resist conformity. I do. So the opportunity that we all have, but I'll say myself is to explore, well, what am I resisting in that? Because it still feels like resistance, or a resistance to me. So what am I resisting about that? Now, that might take me hours, days, weeks, and I won't like lament over it, but it's in my sphere of awareness that I resist conformity. And so, is there a part of me that is resisting conformity to any of the laws? That's what came up for me as I was talking. Is there a part of me that's in resistance to conforming to the laws? Because that would keep me stuck. If I don't conform, right? So if I use that, I'll change the word, but if I, following this thread, if I don't conform to the universal law of attraction, that means I will not receive necessarily the benefit of the law of attraction. Right? And so there is so much opportunity for us. Really, I think the part of the message is we all have programming, right? And we may not even know where we're programmed. And each moment that we have, each experience that we have that brings discomfort can be an opportunity to look at, right? Unfold, unpack, right? Contemplate. Because I believe that our growth comes from the contemplation, right? And understanding that. So, yeah. Karen said, thank you so much for sharing. Conformity takes me back to who I was for decades, right? Yeah. The pendulum has swung way over to the other side at the moment. Agreed. Yeah. Sherry, I love this. Sherry shared, I'm sure you can all read, but I just want to, for those of who will be listening to afterwards, Sherry said, I can get on board with wanting to do what a group is doing as it feels right for me, but not just for approval. Oh, I love that. That's a great way to look, right? That's a great way to look at it. So, Sherry, adhere might feel better definition wise, right? Isn't this like so powerful? So powerful. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for being with me here today. And thank you for the love that I felt while sharing my story and for the continued. Karen, that's probably you working on me. Thank you so much. Just a little bit, right? I just felt myself settle right down, right? The trauma is leaving my body. I appreciate that. I've had the shakes since last night. So I appreciate that. And love you all very, very much. We'll talk soon. Mwah. Bye.